So, the average person walks 150 million steps in a lifetime. But how many go somewhere new? I'm talking about those first steps, next steps, even missteps. The steps that move us all forwards. Those are the ones that count. Let's keep walking.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very, very much for being here. I'm Shoma Chaudhary. I'm the founder of Lucid Lines. As I always say, we are a company that's passionate about the power of ideas and conversation. And there's actually a wonderful quote I'd like to share with you, which absolutely sums up the philosophy of why we have these evenings and why all of us are gathered here today. There's an American author, Ursula Le Guin, who said that words are events. They change things, they do things. They change the hearer and the speaker. They transmit energy and emotion and change the world. So in that kind of passionate belief about the power of words, we are gathered here. And it's fantastic always to come to Chennai because whether it's a match, a cricket match, or an air show, or a cyclone, or a storm, all of you are here, always in large numbers, reinforcing this passion for ideas and conversation. So a huge welcome and thank you for being here. Do give yourselves a huge clap for yourselves. Before we start on the very riveting array of sessions that we have today, I'd really like to thank Shiv Nadar Foundation, our presenting partner and sponsor. They are really the reason that we're able to gather here month on month. They make this possible. They are fantastic, generous patrons. Far from being our ambassadors, we have become ambassadors for them. And genuinely, I say that you cannot get a better, sort of group and institution to partner with because they believe in the vision of something and they back it. And we are particularly proud to have them as our partners because they stand for the transformative power of education. Shiv Nadar Foundation is the personal foundation of Shiv Nadar, who is the founder of HCL, one of India's largest technology companies. They have many institutions of excellence, colleges, schools, both here and in Gurgaon and in Noida. And what is particularly amazing about them is that they are also very committed to providing education to those who are underprivileged, and through their Shiksha initiative that somebody called the Doon School of the Underprivileged, because it is so state-of-the-art and so non-discriminatory, and their Vidya Gyan initiative. They deal with thousands of underprivileged children, giving them world-class education. They also back other ideas in art, in habitats, and as I said, the power of conversation. So I really would love you to acknowledge them with a very, very warm applause. Our other very loyal partner of the evening is Johnny Walker and the Diageo Group. And again, you know, we are really excited to have them partner us. Not only do they make our evenings very pleasurable, but again, they have centered the idea of themselves around the concept of keep walking. Their brand, Johnny Walker, really developed 200 years ago in a little town called Kilmarnock in Scotland. But they have since taken that ethos of keep walking, of tenacity, transformation, determination across the world. And they again ally themselves with events or with ideas that talk about taking societies forward into spaces where everyone's embraced, where everyone is welcome, and where there's a celebration of diversity. So again, we're very excited to have them with us. We also have Vumadi Bangaru Jewelers. All of you know them. They've been here from the 1900s, 6 generations. Their gold, silver, and diamond jewelry is exquisite. I get once a month to be the ambassador of them. I feel like a princess, partly why I like coming to Chennai. My hair hides it, but here I am sporting their jewelry. They also have a stall at the back, so please do have a look at it. But they are really synonymous with exquisite craftsmanship, and they've just opened a new shop and a new outlet in Dallas. So again, they're spreading, you know, the sort of exquisite craftsmanship of India elsewhere in the world. And then again, another very, very proud partner is Lexus. Their beautiful car, the ES and the NX is right there. And you know, as I always say, these are really not sort of statutory thank yous, they're thank yous from the heart. And I want you to join me in really partnering in thanking them, because if they did not believe in what we were doing, none of us could gather here. So during the cocktail break, do have a look at the jewelry, have a look at the car, drink a lot of what Johnny Walker has to offer, and put your children into Shiv Nadar schools, you know. Also, I just want to say about Lexus that it's not just a car. You know, again, their core idea of themselves is that they believe in emotional connection, of course, with sculpted metal and interiors which are luxurious, but they really believe in a kind of unforgettable experience, and that's why they've agreed to partner with us, and I hope we count these as unforgettable experiences. So a huge thank you to them. Very quickly, of course, and always a big thank you to Hemu Ramaya, who is She is the piper. She pipes and you come. So, you know, Hemu is a wonderful partner and co-host. There's Brand Avatar team, Hema Chandra and his wonderful team, who are our event partners. And I'd also like to give a big shout out to our own team at Lucid Lines. As I always say, we started with 2. We've grown to 20, so I'm not going to take all their names, but do go to our website, because there's a wonderful young team that makes this possible. And my own partner, Aditya Puri, who's my keep walking companion through life and art and work. So a big thank you to him always. And now to the session that is really gripping and important. You know, when I was thinking about this session, I just wanted to share a statistic with you. In a recent census, when people were listing themselves, it turned out that Indians believe and follow 1,700 religions and 19,500 languages. That is the diversity of what makes up India. And this is the most unique experiment in the history of the world. Nowhere has a country conceived of itself as its core idea for unity in diversity. And yet that constitution and that idea of nation is obviously not a static thing. It keeps evolving. And in the recent past, there have been many important, contentious, transformative ideas that have been put out in the public domain that challenge the status quo and often create very loud, heated debate. But partly why we wanted to do this session is that these are important issues. This is a country that is evolving. Ideas evolve. And it is important, just like the Constituent Assembly debates are something that are respected across the world, that can we bring our public discourse back to being a conversation about ideas that's evidence-based, that are done in good faith, and may bring together people who think extremely differently about an issue, but come together in good faith to put out arguments that are for, you know, as I said again, evidence-based, and which are for the betterment of a nation rather than just name calling and polarizing. So that's the spirit in which we would love to discuss some of those issues which are in our public domain. There's the idea of the one nation, one election. There's the uniform civil code. There's the caste census. There's the recent amendments proposed for the Waqf board. So many of these are things that either make people uncomfortable or impatient or afraid, and yet what we really need is reasoned debate. The belief that words can change and do things when uttered in good faith and with good intention. So in that context, ladies and gentlemen, I'd love to have you welcome Mr. Quraishi, the Chief Election Commissioner of India, former 17th Chief Election Commissioner. He's been voted by Indian Express as one of the 100 most powerful people in India. He's served for 9 years in international boards that look at democracy. He's been an election observer in South Africa, Pakistan, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, many other countries, but just naming those will make us believe how fortunate we are that we are the kind of functioning democracy that we are. And he's written a book called India and an experiment expressing itself through democracy. I think the books are here. So very warm welcome to you, Mr. Quraishi. Next, we have Meenakshi Lekhi, who's been a 2-time member of parliament. She's been the Union Minister of State for External Affairs and Culture. She's been and is a lawyer with the Delhi High Court and the Supreme Court. She's been a big advocate for women's rights and played a big role in drafting the Women's Reservation Bill and Sexual Harassment Bill. She's advocated for the Permanent Commission of Women in the Indian Armed Forces. She's appeared for many important cases, and she really considers herself foremost as an advocate for gender rights and gender equity. So we're very proud to have her here. She's of course part of the BJP, and we're very happy to have her. And then next up, we have Sagarika Ghose. All of you, of course, do know her. She's been a journalist in so many important publications that I'm not going to name them. But she's currently a member of the Rajya Sabha, and she has written very interesting books on Indira Gandhi and Atal Bihari Vajpayee. You can't get further away on the spectrum of political leaders who've been transformative in India's history. She's a very astute political observer, and now with the Trinamool Congress, and is a spokesperson. She's been, as I said, a journalist for many years, so she wears many hats, and we're very, very happy to have her here. Now, very quickly, just before we get into this session, we have a very short film that gives you just little shards of voices that bring alive for us how contentious and deeply debated these issues are, and how fortunate we are to have this session here today, to have this discussion. So I'll just ask the console to play that before we begin.
हम तोड़ रहे हैं जंजीरें, हम बदल रहे हैं तस्वीरें.
One election is good for the people of India.
अरे हमको क्या लेना देना तुम्हारा 1 इलेक्शन 10 इलेक्शन 20 इलेक्शन 1 नेशन 1000 इलेक्शन आपको कुछ नहीं आएगा.
जनता मान रही है कि खर्च इतना हो रही है, साल भर हो रही है, हर राज्य में हो रही है.
There must be a period for election. In that time, you allow some margins what people say and do.
आज 1 नेशन 1 इलेक्शन जो है वो ला रहे हैं. कल को बोलेंगे 1 नेशन 1 लीडर.
यकसा सिविल कोड को इस देश की जरूरत नहीं है.
1950 से हमारे हर घोषणा पत्र में है कि हम यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड को लाएंगे.
The uniform civil code is something that's desirable, but that you have to take everyone along with you. It can't be imposed on people.
प्लस से सब खत्म कर देंगे.
जाति जनगणना से समाज जुड़ेगा, समाज बटेगा नहीं.
जाति आधारित जनगणना होनी चाहिए। ये राष्ट्र के हित में है, सभी लोगों के हित में है।
जिसकी जात का पता नहीं वो गणना की बात करता है। जाति जनगणना हम करा के दिखाएंगे। खत्म।
Big things need not always be grand. Big sudden changes can be disastrous.
So as I said, that was just to give a taste and reminder of how polyphonous and wonderful our democracy is. And with that, let me start with you, Mr. Quraishi. I just want to, let's start with one nation, one election, which the cabinet has just passed. Of course, it's going to need 18 constitutional amendments for that to really come into practice. 2/3 majority in the Lok Sabha, and then at least half the states have to ratify it. But here's one quick number, that apparently from 1986, there's not been a single year that we haven't had elections. There's some numbers which say that in every year, we only have 65 days when there's, no panchayat election or municipal election. So 300 days of the year go in elections. And apparently, again, from 1950s, from 1967, when we really started having disparate elections, there have been almost 6 elections every odd year, so that's a big number. What do you feel about one nation, one election? We'll come to the practicalities. In just the idea, do you think it needs to be done?
Yeah. Thank you, Shoma, first for inviting me. Ladies and gentlemen, you must have seen me helped to the days because I have a knee problem. I'm not old, I'm only 77. I'm a civil servant. My problem is my knee, but my backbone is intact, I can assure you. But you can just imagine my plight. I'm surrounded, or by good fortune.
Can everyone hear him?
Surrounded by 3 most elegant ladies of the country. And you're seeing me now when I'm old and ugly. You should have seen me 40 years ago when I was young and ugly. In any case, I'll try and gather courage and come back to the topic. Now, one nation, one election has been on the table for the last 10 years. And I have been writing on it for the last 10 years. I must have written 20 articles and I must have given 200 TV interviews. There are pros and cons of the idea. First of all, it is not an idea which was floated by Prime Minister Modi. This was first mentioned by Mr. L.K. Advani. It was mentioned by the Law Commission in 1999. Even Mr. Vasant Sade had talked about it, so it has been mentioned time and again for various reasons. There are benefits, there are pros and there are cons. Now the pros are, the voter at all 3 levels is the same, you, me. The polling station where you go is the same. The people who organize all 3 elections are the same, the district administration. The security apparatus is the same. So therefore, if you go to the polling station, instead of pressing one machine, if you press all 3, actually it's a very convenient thing and then you're free. But who is free? The managers of the election, or the people? So that is where the question begins. What do people want? I remember at an India Foundation function, BJD MP, what's his name? Bhartruhari Mehta. And he said he'll ask the people. They love frequent elections because the kind of poverty that we have, the only power the people have is the power to vote. And they get to exercise it at the time of election. And how many times have you seen an MP and MLA goes missing for 5 years and you have the people put up posters, Gumshuda ki talash, missing. So now at least because of frequent election, the leaders come again and again to the door of these poor people and they feel important. And then the reason given, it costs a lot of money. Yes, it costs a lot of money. About 4,500 is the election management cost to the election commission of the government.
4,500 crores
Yeah.
to do one election, like national
that's
election.
for one election. And the last estimate said by Center for Media Studies for 2019 election, they haven't come out with the latest, was 60,000 crores was spent by the politicians. Now,
This time, 2024 elections, it's 1.3 trillion rupees is what
it could be, it will surely be much more. Personally, I feel this is a money well spent from the politician to the people. The people get jobs, they get employment, so the money is being recycled, so why not? And I remember once I attended an interesting program in Pune, MIT Pune, where a National Youth Parliament of 5,000 youth, where a girl from Chhattisgarh said कि जब जब चुनाव आता है, गरीब के पेट में पुलाव आता है. Now you want to deny him that pulao, so that's a question.
So,
debate.
Mr. Quraishi, I just want to open it up. I'll come back to you. So, if I had to pin you down, back in July, you were actually pro One Nation, One Election after this grueling, 7-week election that we had. But recently in September, you've again sort of changed your mind and said, that it would actually be a disservice to democracy. So if today I had to kind of pin, of course it's a complex thing and we'll keep unraveling the complexity, but if you were to veer on either side of the divide, what do you think you would?
No. First of all, let me make it clear that I have not changed my mind. From the beginning, I have been giving the pros and cons. I have told you the pros and I have also told you the cons. For the election commission, this is the best thing to happen. We do election once in 5 years and play golf for the next 5. Good for me. But it is not election commissioner's convenience that has to be seen. And secondly, to say that you mentioned that election is happening. I voted yesterday in Haryana. Did you know that election was happening in Haryana except if you watched the TV? Did it bother you? Did it affect your life in Chennai? No. Election may be happening somewhere or the other in the country at any time, granted, but it doesn't affect everybody. It affects only two parties. Election Commission, because wherever the election, we have to be there. And the top politicians, because wherever the election, they have to go and campaign. Otherwise, for the general public, even if it is happening in your neighboring constituency, not to talk of neighboring district or state, nobody would know that election is happening. To say that the life comes to a standstill is wrong. And I'll finish on that. If I'll request all of you to do yourself a favor, download the Model Code of Conduct of the Election Commission. It's a 15-page document. And the only thing the Model Code stops is that no new policies will be announced. No new program will be announced. Everything old will continue. My question is, why is it that all the bright ideas for development come to the minds of the politician only 15 days before the election? 4 years, 11 months they are in power, they don't think of those ideas, and just before the election they have bright ideas, and then they curse the election commission and model code. Because of them, we cannot announce these new ideas. Nothing comes to a standstill. It's absolutely wrong.
Thank you, Mr. Quraishi. Meenakshi, I'd like to take this to you because, this is an idea that the cabinet has passed. So what is the BJP's position on this? In this discussion between efficiency, economic efficiency, and this very diverse country expressing its views through frequent elections, what is your personal stand on it and what is your party's stand on it?
So I will stick to my personal stand. Reason being that I was one of the initial people who started from within the party, started researching, working on this particular project as in-house project some 10 years ago. And I studied all the models across the globe, whatever was going on in the world. And one thing I must say, when world is veering towards one nation, one election, I don't know what is the resistance India is showcasing. So you look at UK, you look at Belgium, you look at Latin American countries, you look at US, you look at France, you look at all these countries, if all of them who have levels of government like us. Most democracies have national government, provincial government, local government. These three governments every country has. In addition, they have something like European Union election, and they've all veered towards one nation, one election, and have worked towards it. There must be some sane idea. It must be working. And something which is working for others, why should that not work for me? Am I that different? Number one. Number two, there have been empirical data studies. And I was just looking for, because I did some research 10 years ago, I had forgotten about, I remembered the name of the professor, Nikolai, Kasaba Nikolai. He's a professor from Montreal University and had studied our system. And he came to the conclusion that one nation, one election brings more people to the electoral ballot. More people vote. So when we are talking about representative democracy, in representative democracy, more and more participation of people will bring leaders of choice which people want to vote for, not voter apathy which brings leaders. So if I am a corrupt politician, as Quraishi Saab said, pulao, तो पुलाव खिलाने का पैसा नहीं और बार-बार तो बिल्कुल ही नहीं. तो मतलब आपका वोटर जो घर में बैठा है वो वोट डालने नहीं आ रहा है. Your voter is not coming forward to vote. And then some people who are undeserving get to the position. Does that solve the democratic quagmire? Answer is no. We want higher participation of people, and higher participation will happen when voters' apathy is not there. You showcase one day, you say this is the day, this is the time, everybody has to come out and vote and choose a person of your choice. More people turn up, and the variation in the graph is about 20% and above. So 20% more people vote means greater representational democracy. Democracy in this country has worked, especially in state like Jammu and Kashmir. I was very shocked. With 7 or 8% votes, chief ministers used to get elected. Do you call that democracy? I think higher percentage of participation is what we will look forward to. In addition to this, efficiency of the system, security forces. Quraishi Saab may be saying that whatever is happening in Haryana does not impact people in Chennai. But I know a contractor who works for railways. I know somebody who works for the roads. His work is impeded. He's not getting his payments. Nobody is there to sign his checks. And because he's not getting his money, he's not able to put the money into the process and is not able to make payments in turn to other people, and project delay of 3 months or 2 months is costing him a lot of damage. So efficiency, money, work, greater participation, everything goes in favor of one nation, one election. One last point which I would like to make, and that is, let's go back to the history of this country. Nepal, Pakistan, our friends, neighbors, all have one nation, one election. How did it change in India? We also started with one nation, one election, and I was looking at the data, and data showcased that it all started with 67th election. So in 1967 election was when the change of power happened in Congress. Indira Gandhi won those elections. Post that, 3 governments were dismissed. 3 state governments were dismissed, 68, 69, 70. Because 3 state governments were dismissed, the 3 state government, now obviously the election cycle will change for them. And 71, this government, national government itself was dismissed. That's how the national cycle changed, by extensive use of 356. So you don't like a state government, you dismiss the government, change the election cycle. And keep changing that election cycle. This is the history of this country. That election cycle did not change of its own. Whatever logic one may be giving today, the history is Congress, bad governance, by invoking 356, changed the election cycle of this government, of this country, and that's the history of this country. And you look at further data, in 90s, in 2000, post-2005, every time there was a non-Congress government in the center, that got dismissed. That's the history. That's why we need one nation, one election, so that no one party becomes supreme and there is no horse trading and people know what they have to deliver. Once we decide there's going to be one nation, one election, that is not answer to all the maladies. We may require further changes in the constitution and governance structure, which we should take. Thank you.
So, Meenakshi, I'll come back to address a few of the points you raised. One, just referencing other countries whose sheer scale, plurality numbers may not be similar to us, so may not be the perfect reference point. And I'll come back to some of the issues. You're very right about that India began with one nation, one election, and in fact it was Indira Gandhi who went for snap poll in 71, and apart from the state dismissals, which really triggered these disparate election cycles. So that's really true. But one thing which the BJP has been saying in its articulation of why to have one nation, one election is that we need a kind of national unity, and that, it will remove divisive dialogues about casteism and communalism, and that the vote will become about national issues. And I think that, again, is a point of worry, so I'm going to come back to that. But I just want Sagarika to come in on this. Sagarika, you have been an opponent of this, your party is an opponent of this. Many in the India Alliance is an opponent of this. So what are your arguments? What are the fears that one nation, one election triggers?
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you, Chennai, and thank you to the Shiv Nadar Foundation for having me. I love coming to Chennai. I always have a lovely time here. And before I begin, I love the fact that all of us represent different ideologies and we're all on the same platform. It reminds me of the Prime Minister of whom I am a biographer, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, who was a great believer that you can have love and you can have friendship even if you don't have 100% agreement. And there was a lady here who asked me that, are you friends with your ideological rivals? And I said, of course I am. And I believe that in fact, to reach across and form friendships across ideological barriers is a very important democratic exercise. I always begin my talks with a Vajpayee joke. I have to give you a Vajpayee joke because I think you'll enjoy it. He was a tremendous parliamentarian. As Meenakshi knows, he was a parliamentarian prime minister, and he belonged to an age when the media, and I belong to the media, could ask questions freely. Vajpayee had a very open personal life. He had lived all his life with a woman he was in love with, and he lived with her and her husband, and they all lived together in the same family. And once, when he was foreign minister, a journalist asked Vajpayee, Mr. Vajpayee, forget about this Pakistan and Tibet and China, and tell us, who is Mrs. Kaul in your life? And Vajpayee thought long and hard and said, Kashmir jaisa mamla hai. So that was Vajpayee for you. And he was that kind of prime minister of tremendous spirit and humor. I think he used humor to reach across the aisle, which I think is sorely lacking now. But to come back to one nation, one election, oh no. No to one nation, one election. That is the stand that we have taken. I want to give you a few facts that have come to our notice as serving parliamentarians. I am a serving parliamentarian, and these facts have come to our notice. I'll share them with you. From the year 2017 to 2021, there have been 244 consequential rail accidents. Hundreds are dying in rail accidents. Today, the state of the economy is 1% of the wealthy own 40% of the economy. We are called a billionaire Raj. That is the level of inequality in our economy today. 63 lakh small enterprises have been driven out of business because of the 3 fatal blows of demonetization, sudden lockdown, and shoddy GST. Between the ages of 20 and 25, 42% young are unemployed. Today, Indians are the 3rd largest cohort of illegal migrants to the United States. Illegal migrants. We're 3rd after El Salvador and Mexico. In 2023, 12 lakh Indians gave up Indian citizenship. We are a country.
Sagarika, sorry. So
in the context of this, what is one nation, one election? It is nothing but a weapon of mass distraction. The Modi government has singularly failed to tackle all problems. This is a trial balloon. It is a kite flying exercise. It is what I call a weapon of mass distraction. Why is it a weapon of mass distraction? Can you pass it in the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha? No, you do not have a majority. Yes, I take the point about that Indira Gandhi started the process of dissolution of state assemblies, but today our politics is hyper-localized, hyper-federalized. Every state, every locality, every block, every panchayat has local issues. Why should all these local issues and local factors be all funneled into one single referendum? The BJP doesn't want one election, one nation, one election. They just want one leader. It's just one election, one nation, one leader. That's what they want. That's why they're pushing this. So one election, one nation is a non-starter. The idea of the people's will. This is not a multinational company where, you're totting up costs and convenience and revenue losses and revenue gains. This is the transcendental, dynamic, and robust entity known as the people's will. It is the sovereignty of the people. The sovereignty of the people rests in the constitution. The sovereignty of the people rests in negotiations with the powers, with the state. Citizen and government renegotiate their relationship during time of elections. And also, the BJP touts its growth rates, right? We have 8% growth rates. We have 8.5% growth rates. So the growth rates are happening with multiple elections. It's not as if we've had one election, one nation all this time. We've had so much of, if these are the huge growth rates that the BJP itself is touting, and we've had them with these multifarious elections, then why not continue with them? Why fix something that is broke? I just want to make one last point, which is that you cannot in today's time compare us to Nehru's era or to the Indira Gandhi era. We are a completely diversified, highly localized polity which cannot now be funneled into a single referendum or into a single one nation, one election. This is an assault on federalism. One last point, BJP does not come into this debate with its hands clean. BJP has toppled 9 governments in 9 years. They have downsized a state into a union territory. They have not given Bengal funds. They have not given Tamil Nadu flood relief. They have not given Karnataka its dues. And the BJP, which has arrested opposition chief ministers Arvind Kejriwal and Hemant Soren. What face does the BJP have to talk about one nation, one election? No face. We want the rights of states. We want the rights of federalism. We want the rights of Bengal and Tamil Nadu.
Sagarika. There were some good arguments there. There was a good performance there. but entertaining. But if you recall, we also said that we are going to do this in a way which actually just allows for counter arguments to flow and not to turn it into a television debate. So I'm just putting out the arguments there.
This is nothing but a weapon of mass distraction by the BJP.
Sagarika, really, genuinely, my entire intent of creating this platform is not to bring the noise of TV here. Right. I'm not going to turn your mic off. Yeah. I'm just going to ask you for reasoned debate. So there are two, and I'm going to bring Mr. Quraishi into this again, but there are some important things here which I'd like to put to you, just chew on it because I want to open this up back to Meenakshi, which is that, when you said, and very rightfully, that elections is a time when the people's will is expressed. But when you were saying that that's the tool through which democracy expresses itself, I know that you're also a constitutionalist. You deeply believe in the idea of a constitutional democracy as well. So it's not just meant to be an electoral democracy where things only happen because there's an election round the corner. And there are very reasoned people, commentators, who are talking about the huge economic cost of doing this. The N.K. Sinha and Prachi Mishra report that just came up said that having one nation, one election would open up 4.5 lakh crores of money saved after the first expense of creating the infrastructure. And that's literally India's entire education budget and half its health budget, So I just want to leave that question with you, that is constitutional democracy as important as electoral democracy? And Meenakshi, to come back to you, I think Sagarika made a very important point, which is that...
Thank you, Shoma, after saying that it was a TV debate.
Yes, the pitch was TV debate, As I said,
that's my
argument.
natural Bengali hysteria.
Right. All power to that. Meenakshi, I want to pick one point which Sagarika raised, which is that, yes, in 1967, 1971, Nehru had one nation, one election. It's Indira Gandhi's dominance, actually, that broke that system. But because of that, regional...
manipulation, if I may use
manipulation, dominance, unconstitutional dismissal of government. Well, not unconstitutional, she used a constitutional clause, but undemocratic dismissal of governments. But because of that, many regional parties actually blossomed, and that was a point that Sagarika made, that those years, Congress was the monolith in many ways that BJP has been over the last 10 years. And it is because there were disparate elections that India began to actually express itself through regional voices. Many regional parties became very, very relevant because it was no longer one big national referendum. The BJP itself has been a beneficiary of that. So what do you say to that? That why is there this desire to monolithize and homogenize this country?
I'm coming to that. Sagarika's performance, as you said, was great, but unfortunately, she's a Rajya Sabha member. If she was in Lok Sabha, I would have agreed with her most things, because that's how you wear the emotions and you get the votes and all that. But when you are in discerning voices matter, and when you are in a gathering of people who understand more than you think they understand. They understand what happens at the time of elections. This is not an electoral platform, and we must understand that West Bengal's contribution to global economy of the nation, GDPs, was 10.5%, till 60s, by the way. Today it is less than 5%, 4.2% or something. So you give data and detail, this is happening, 1% is controlling this, 2% is controlling that, not making personal comments. But that 1% and more is giving employment to this country. If Mark Zuckerberg makes money, you don't have a problem, but if somebody else makes money, you have a problem. I would want more and more Indian industrialists to become Mark Zuckerbergs, yeah? And that is not happening. When you want questions and answers on health, education and all, what the hell is Parliament doing? Raising slogans, shouting, yelling, that's what is happening in the Parliament by the members of opposition. That is the place you debate all this. You control budgets. You bring some sense to the table. The answer is you are busy electioneering. You are doing precisely this, what you did in this hall. You're not asking questions where questions need to be asked. You're not putting the government in the lock where you should. You're only creating rhetoric atmosphere to win votes. That's why one nation, one election. Rhetoric is not the answer. Policy making is the answer, and that's what needs to happen, and that's why one nation, one election. Coming back to your question.
Yeah, my question was that actually...
Regional parties.
Yes.
See, I wrote a piece just yesterday, and that piece was, INA was a startup. I was comparing somebody with startups. So that was the need of the hour because country had to show its might. Congress was in power sharing mode in 47 and before that. But somebody had to stand up and take charge that Congress policy is not the right policy and cannot get freedom to this country. So Subhash Chandra Bose left Congress and started INA. So it's not as if opposition to Congress did not happen. Congress opposition existed. Parties were blamed to be regional parties. People like us who may have started as some other party at the time of independence or before independence came in the form of BJP only 1980. Before that, there was Janata Party. Before that, there were Swaraj Party. So many other parties existed. So it's not as if regional parties came because of Congress.
No, Meenakshi,
regional
parties, they did get electoral strength because this kind of one monolith began to express itself in more geographic divisions.
So let me. I am not debating that the geographical entities of regional parties should be taken away. The regional agenda will always be important for that state. And taking away that right from the people is questioning their intelligence. That they will get carried away while voting for one for the nation and they will vote similarly on the same pattern for the state, is taking away the intelligence of the people, which I will not. I will not dare to do that because I have complete faith in the people of this country, as election results by empirical data has showcased. By empirical data, time and again, 2011, before that, or you analyze any election, when state is 2014, 24, so you win, so state agenda is different from the national agenda. Many state elections have happened simultaneously with the national election. Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Odisha, one or two more. And every time people have voted differently. So people voted party X for the regional purposes and party Y for national purposes. So taking that right from the people, I will not, because empirical data is showcasing something completely different. Regional parties will continue to exist in that jurisdiction. National parties, to run foreign policy and other things, you need a different kind of person and personality. That will continue to work. And I think it's time, whether it is the legislator at the regional level or it is the legislator at the national level, stop spending time post-election in electioneering and start getting to the work they are assigned, that is legislation and budget making. That's the job they are supposed to do. They are not supposed to be engaging in rhetoric conversations. So they are supposed to do the job.
Let me bring Mr. Quraishi in. This is what's going to happen in Parliament when women's reservation kicks in. Men are finally going to learn what it is to be silent. So, Mr. Quraishi, let me put this to you. Yogendra Yadav had an interesting column where he said this entire enterprise of one nation, one election is the dream vision of the elite to save the republic from the public, you know. And there is a great sort of discomfort with the clutter and mess of democracy. And that yes, there are leakages, but what really matters, what keeps this democracy safe, and to Sagarika's point, and I actually say this to a lot of people, that you know, when we hold up China and we hold up other countries, including the European Union, I'm very proud of India because with all the polyphonous, you know, democratic voice, pushbacks, the tug and pull, we have pulled millions out of poverty. There is GDP growth, and we are a nation that by and large speaks its voice. It may, you know, have a quarantine period now and then, but it speaks its voice. So do you agree that one nation, one election will smother the voices of democracy?
Well, actually, first of all, I thought at some point the debate is straight from one nation, one election into many other issues.
Yes.
Each one of them important, no doubt. Now, first of all, I would like to remind you that...
we can have a whole other session on the economy of the nation.
Sure. Now, when the Prime Minister brought up this subject 10 years ago, he said he wants a national debate. He did not thrust it down the throat of the nation. He said he wants a national debate to arrive at a consensus. The debate happened for 10 years, but no consensus was reached. In which case, logical conclusion would have been to shelve the project. Now, once since no consensus was arrived at, now decision has been taken to thrust it down the throat. Now, the latest committee, which was formed under former Rashtrapati Kovindji, personally, I have a comment to make on that. Also, I wrote an article in the Indian Express. Now, drawing the former president into a Sarkari committee, it's absolutely inappropriate. And I've gone through the report. I feel hesitant to comment on that committee report because of the respect I have for Mr. Kovind, but I must comment on it. What have they said? The committee was asked, hey, look, no debate about pros and cons, you have to implement it, tell us how to implement it. Now, I'll just draw the attention to 2-3 recommendations they have made. One, that, when we are talking of simultaneous election, we are talking of Lok Sabha and Vidhan Sabha and not of the panchayats. So now, Vidhan Sabha has 4,120 MLAs and 543 MPs, 5,000 people. 30 lakh elected representatives of panchayats have been taken away. Now, it is not simultaneous election. His second recommendation that panchayat election will be done 100 days later. An election 100 days later is an entirely new election with entire new bandobast. It is not a simultaneous election. Third, if the government falls, the state government falls in between, there will be an election. So where is the simultaneous election? Except that the election will be held for the remainder of the term. Now, you will be spending 5 crores, 8 crores for only 2-year election, not for full 5 term. Because they say that it will be only till the end of the term and not for full 5 years. Therefore, the fact that even this committee could not really come up with a solution which we wanted, therefore, why tinker with something? I think the proposal has lost all moral authority. It has been totally diluted. Why are we pursuing it when we have more important things to do? And finally, I would say, this, Meenakshi, with due apologies to you, I've heard it hundreds of times. Look, for the first 11, 15 years, there was simultaneous election after all. Yes, it is a historical truth. But what happened after 67 is also a historical truth. That state government were dismissed, they will be dismissed again, or they will fall for some reason or the other. So what do we do? Now imagine we have created a simultaneous election situation. And the Lok Sabha, the central government falls as it did in Vajpayee's time in 13 days. So why should 29 other assemblies should also be disbanded because something has happened in Delhi? All these state governments have come with absolute majority. Why should should this be done? Conversely, Tamil Nadu government, suppose it falls, what will happen then? Will you bring it under president rule for 4.5 years? So no, the foolproof solutions have actually been. But just allow me to finish one thing, because another thing which Meenakshi ji had mentioned, she mentioned that the issues at 3 levels are different. I entirely agree with her, but the conclusions which she drew, I have an opposite conclusion, because now imagine you are living in a village and the drain in front of your house is stinking, and there is a simultaneous election. The issues at the panchayat level and the state and parliament are different. Will you vote with the sarpanch in your mind, or the Prime Minister in your mind? Would you be looking at Ukraine policy or the drain in front of your house? So why should these issues be merged? So therefore, and finally, one factual thing which has been mentioned again and again, the voter is very intelligent. They, in the same election, they vote differently for Vidhan Sabha. There is it's to flatter the voters and because it's politically a good statement. The fact is, there was a study for 20 years, voter behavior for 20 years, and it found when the elections were simultaneous, 77% people voted for the same party. When they were separated by 1.5 months, it came down to 61%. When they were separated further, it came down drastically. An example is Delhi. In one election, the Aam Aadmi Party gets 67 out of 70 seats. 1 year later, it loses all 7 seats in the Lok Sabha. Therefore, simultaneous elections are actually distorting the people's priorities. Staggered elections, they have done pretty well for the country. We are a union of states, and federalism is extremely important. And that question has not been answered even by this report.
So I'm just Sorry.
Article 1 of our constitution is India, that is Bharat, is a union of states. We are a parliamentary federal structure. My friend Meenakshi Lekhi is extremely learned, and she was an extremely good chairperson of a select committee, I know. And she's one of the few sensible and articulate members of the BJP, which is probably why she hasn't got a ticket this time. That's the party for you. But anyway, but I would say, sorry, but I would say, can I just make 2 points? What the committee is saying, and I completely agree with Quraishi Sahab, that you cannot bring down a president to the level of a chairperson of a Sarkari committee. He's the president of India. He was a distinguished president of India. How can you make him the committee?
He's made that point already, and my clock
I just want to say 2 things. See, it requires 2 rounds of constitutional amendments. The first round of constitutional amendments will be required to have Lok Sabha and Vidhan Sabha at the same time. The second round of constitutional amendments will be required to have the local body elections after 100 days of the general election, right? You don't have the numbers for these constitutional amendments. Now, the committee said that the first simultaneous election it can hold is 2029. From now to 2029, there are 17 assemblies. 17 assemblies will go to elections. 17 Vidhan Sabhas will go to elections. Are you therefore saying that in 2029 all those 17 will be dissolved?
So, Sagarika, I just want to say
I'm
one
just saying
thing.
the practicalities are...
Just one second. Just hold on 1 second. I didn't want to get into the practicalities, because then you'll get into the paramilitary forces, you know, all that, but those are more administrative things, and we have very competent people to fix all that. And also, where the exact practicalities are concerned, you know, this country has done such amazing, like just holding an election at the scale we do is a practical, you know, absolute miracle. So I'm not so interested in the practicalities. If there was a consensus or an agreement that this needs to be done, then it can be done, you know. So that's why I don't want to get, like, we know in a way this is a stalemate, you know, because they've passed it in cabinet and it is not going to go through because they're not getting 50% ratification from state or 2/3 majority in parliament. But that's not the issue. I began this thing with saying these are very important, deep debates about the future of this country or about needle shifts that are needed. And so one should discuss the principles of it rather than the partisan politics or the practicalities, you know. I'm just going to shift gear here, but because we haven't clearly come to a consensus, I would love to know what the hall is thinking. How many of you are pro one nation, one election? Would you put up your hands? Okay, that's pretty minority there. And how many of you are against one nation, one election?
Yay!
Okay. So that is an expression of ITC Hall 7 and 8's will, you know. Okay, I'm going to shift to...
Just a quick point on constitutional democracy and electoral democracy. You know, in a constitutional democracy, sovereignty, as we said, lies with the people. And the will of the people is expressed in the Constitution, and the Constitution is protected by the judiciary. Legislature makes the laws, and the judiciary enforces the law. And the ruler in a democracy is the citizen. Now, it is the election, it is the exercise of the franchise that gives the citizen her say in the functioning of the constitutional democracy. So I wouldn't separate constitutional and electoral democracy. I would say that electoral democracy, we shouldn't become a cephocracy, which is just elections without democratic institutions, which is what the Modi-led BJP is doing to India. We're making it a cephocracy. We have the elections, but we don't have democratic institutions. We don't have democratic freedoms. We don't have the kind of freedoms we had under Vajpayee. We don't have the kind of liberties of individuals. We don't have the kind of liberties of institutions. We don't have the non-partisan institutions. We don't have a free judiciary. All of that is part of the democratic structure. Now, without that, we would have a cephocracy. But I would not make the artificial distinction that you're making between constitutional democracy and electoral democracy, because I believe electoral democracy serves constitutional democracy.
No, fair enough. I want to shift quickly. You know, we had 4 topics today, but we are not going to anywhere come close to caste census, Waqf Board, UCC, but I do want to open up the UCC because that's again been a core debate. But Meenakshi, I just want you to have this last thought. That do you not agree that every 6 months, you know, every 1 year, as issues bubble up, that there is a change in mood in the electorate, and it's like a litmus test, you know, where governments get to actually test their legitimacy, and even a state election lets a central government know whether the mood of the people is moving away from them or not. And, you know, so it is a kind of, in such a polyphonous democracy, it is a safety valve that people get to express themselves every 1 year, 2 years, every few months. So how do you respond to that? Do you really want one mood after every 5 years?
No, I want governments to get elected and perform. I do not want governments and politicians to only engage in rhetoric, because every democracy, to be functional, they have job to do. They are not there to hold a mic and just chatter up. No. They have laws to pass. They have budgets to pass. They have those nalas and nalis to be cleaned up. They have roads to be made. They just can't announce things 15 days before elections, 1,000 rupees in all women's pocket, and not deliver. I do not want politicians to go unaccounted for what they are, or take up all the forest land, make money on all illegal constructions, and then say, oh, this is done, and the next guy will come and pay for it. And let a poor person without policy pay for those buildings. I'm sorry, the discussions have to be around real subjects and topics. All the money that gets wasted needs to be put in use where it should be used. All the action has to be where the action has to be. I will just say statistics do not really, statistics you can turn whichever way. My question to people in the audience, and you don't have to raise your hands, you can keep the answers to yourself, would be how many times you go and vote. That is the question. Do you vote for national elections? Do you always go for municipal elections? Do you always go for state elections? I'm very happy to know that, but the numbers are very different. The numbers are, in the percentage population variation is 20% higher in national election, 20% less in legislative body, and still less in municipal election. That's how the numbers are. I'm very grateful that all of you are very conscientious citizens, but maybe a lot of people who are outside this hall are not that conscientious. But the fact is, the numbers dwindle. I want 90%, 100% people to go out and vote. I would say that when maximum number of people vote, that is the true representation, because there is always a silent majority. Not necessarily noise making is what gets you the vote. Sometimes there is silent majority also. And that's what needs to take the country forward. No country will go forward in this kind of engagement.
But Mr. Quraishi wanted to make a point. I just want to reinforce something Mr. Quraishi said, though, Meenakshi, which is that he said there's only 60 days of model code of conduct, you know, and in that, yes, governments are not allowed to introduce new, but nothing is stopping them from continuing with old programs or being efficient about them, except the use of a lot of karamcharis and government officials and teachers,
Shoma,
all that gets...
Shoma, I'm sorry to quote from one particular case, because that case has come to me, and that is from southern India, and I'm a practicing lawyer as well. So the case is that for 3 months there was code of conduct. This guy did not get his 30 crores, which he could reinvest in the business. He lost the contract, and the thing which was supposed to, it was a dam project which was supposed to be completed, because he had lack of funds, he could not complete, and then because of 3 months plus whatever time, this contract got cancelled. And it had to be retendered. And this happens repeatedly, every time, time and again. This is what you see also, across the country. Every state, every election, your officer's not there, money is not getting released. So sometimes, as part of economy, and I'm not saying this is only economy-related question, if we truly want to be a developed nation by 2047, which we all wish our country becomes a developed nation by that time, it will not happen by status quo. We'll have to bring some very major changes. We have to think beyond what is available in our sight. Otherwise, all the data that how many Indians, the third largest community to travel to US, other parameters going
Illegal
down,
migrants.
illegal migrants, etc., will continue to happen. Because the money and the thought process is such that you're not making opportunities available. You're all looking for free pulao. I'm sorry, that's not the way countries progress.
Mr. Quraishi, you wanted
Some
to say?
hard actions have to be taken.
I have to say, because there's a friend of mine who runs the Bangalore Electronic City and has been a mayor there, and he's been arguing furiously about this. So just in deference to him, I have to say that he was saying that, where within your companies, you're able to do something, say, spend your budget in a particular parameter. He said as the mayor of a city in which they have quite a bit of power, but because there's elections and stuff, he said, we realize that we're taking 2 years to do what gets done, say, in 90 days or, so there is an efficiency question that he said is very important
I would
for
completely
governance.
disagree with that because I think governance actually happens during elections. It is when elections are announced that politicians actually govern. Mr. Modi reduced the price of fuel by ₹2 when elections were announced. Mr. Modi reduced the price of cooking gas by 100 rupees when elections were announced. When elections were announced in Maharashtra, we had Ladli Behin scheme. When elections are announced in Uttar Pradesh, we have a slew of women's welfare schemes. When Mr. Modi, when elections are
Sagarika,
announced, Modi comes to Tamil Nadu. I'm saying that a lot of governance actually happens when elections are announced.
Sure.
So I think so in that sense to say that that the election period is a governance-less time is not accurate because a number of policies are announced, a number of welfare measures are rolled out. Okay, they may be free pulao, but a lot of policy decisions are made. So I wouldn't say that the period of the Model Code of Conduct or the period of elections is governance-free. In fact, I think that's when governance speeds up.
Mr. Quraishi, I'm just going to let you have the last. So I quickly want to touch on UCC. We're going to run out of time. So, yeah.
Yeah. Before you guillotine the subject, 2 points.
Oh.
One is that the logistics. Suppose we come to the conclusion that we are going to do it. Now, we will require 3 times the EVMs. We have 20 lakhs. We'll need 60 lakhs. We will need 3 times the VVPATs. We have about 18 lakhs. So multiply by 3. We will need more forces. And that will require a lot of money and a lot of time to manufacture. Secondly, the reason given for this proposal was that it costs a lot of money and it disrupts normal life. Have we looked at any alternative routes to achieve this? I have mentioned it in several of my articles that if there is a cap on the expenditure by a candidate, a Lok Sabha candidate can spend 97 lakhs. But the party can spend 5 crores or 10 crores on them. What is this? It makes mockery of limit on the expenditure. There should be a limit on political party spending also, as they have in UK from where we borrowed. And you will notice from 60,000 crores, it will come down to 6,000 crores. Second, disruption of work. There used to be simultaneous election in Himachal and Gujarat for 30, 40 years. But because it's politically, it did not suit somebody, same government which wanted election shortened, they separated these 2 elections by 22 days, which means the model code got prolonged by 22 days. So where is the sincerity in the proposal? Now, the latest elections, 2.5 months. I've been writing and I say we should look at it. Can we do it in 1 day, 1 phase? We can in 32 days. The cost will come down and the disruption of work will come down. And finally, as a personal example, to say that work comes to a standstill. I'll give you 2 examples. In our time, a proposal came that the government want to reduce the price of petrol by 2 rupees. At that time, 2 rupees reduction was a lot of money. And 5 states were going to the polls, including Tamil Nadu. The proposal came to us and we applied our mind that if we hold it for 2 months, the entire nation suffers. So we allowed, except for 5 states where it will be implemented 2 months later, we allowed it to happen. Secondly, do allow me this. Once I got the call from the cabinet secretary that the finance minister Pranab Mukherjee then wants to increase the MP lad scheme from 2 crores to 5 crores. The total cost 8,000 crores. I was strolling in my garden And I told him on the phone, tell him go ahead and announce it in Parliament. I told my other two colleagues later, because we realize we don't want to bring anything to a standstill. And this is the quick decision making that we have. To say that everything come to a standstill is a wrong allegation.
Okay.
Line intervention?
Yes, yes. I don't think we have time to even go into it. No, make your intervention. No, I was saying I don't have time to go into UCC. Please make your intervention.
So all I was going to say, all the examples of good governance and announcements during election came from Sagarika were about Narendra Modi. She could not give one example of Mamata Banerjee, who was playing football with a broken foot.
She always makes them. No, I have to be allowed to come in there. My good friend Meenakshi Lekhi
Don't occupy your TMC hat right now.
Thrown the gauntlet down.
This is just a bit of fun.
My good friend Meenakshi Lekhi. But that's because Mamata Banerjee is always making good announcements. That's why she doesn't need elections to make announcements.
Okay, no. You know, I mean, Bengal has a lot of catching up to do on the governance front. And then I want to actually end with one, because we were talking about the value of words, Meenakshi. So I want to say that, do you think here that there's also a distrust because of the rhetoric of the BJP? You know, so do you think that what might actually go through if there's an atmosphere of trust gets sidelined because there's an atmosphere of distrust, you know? So I say this even about, say, triple talaq, uniform civil code, many of these things like the Hindu code bill was legislated. You know, it's not often that a society fixes itself, whether it's widow remarriage, child marriage, sati, dowry, innumerable, you know, things which needed fixing have got fixed through law. But it is about how elevated and enlightened and, you know, the intention with which status quo is shifted becomes very important, because that's when you get a buy-in from people. So would you, in the spirit of what I intended this session to be, that introspecting, do you think that the BJP needs to fix some of its rhetoric to create more trust in what it may actually have the courage to be taking decisions which break status quo? Say even on uniform civil code, which is a debate that many people say, yes, some things are needed, but it is the distrust around the rhetoric and its intention which makes these things get sidelined. What do you think about that?
No, I would, I mean, distrust part, I'm with you, but how to address it is something which I may differ. The responsibility cannot squarely be shifted to BJP. BJP may have to do its act differently, the communication skills have to be better, but at the same time, people who are talking rhetoric and not coming to the point, are not able to prove their point empirically, have nothing to showcase, cannot be given a free flow. That's where people need to question that. Look, stop this, give us the answer on this. That's what we need to do. While I'm not dismissing the fact that BJP may require better communication, may require to sit across the table and all, that's how negotiations...
You're arresting opposition chief ministers.
Sagarika, 1 second. Let her finish. Huh.
You know, I was asked a question, what is it that you wanted central government to do and it did not do? I said, I can't think of anything. Outside this question was asked, but the constant rhetoric which Sagarika is engaging in, I can also shift my opinion and say maybe I wanted on doctors' matter dismissal of West Bengal government, which central government did not do. They should have done it. Good enough reason. But you know, the fact is, the central government has been very circumspect of not using 356. Central government is very circumspect of not using 356. They have not done it. They have taken action in the interest of the country.
You arrested a sitting opposition chief minister.
Come on, you cannot be corrupt and
before an election.
Oh, come on.
Unheard of.
Sitting
unheard of.
Come on,
Sagarika, I often wonder. Meenakshi, just hold on.
Sorry,
just hold on. Please hold on.
This has to be answered.
Both Sagarika and Meenakshi, I think the whole world is looking for women leadership, and to me at least, that means an unbroken allegiance to hearing each other out. Please make very strong evidence-based arguments, but please don't speak on top of each other. I think that's a very male thing to do, so let's not do that. It would be devastating. It really would be, it would be devastating. Sorry guys, I was just making a womanly point. But just
May I offer you a solution? Let me speak.
See, Sagarika, and I must say in all fairness, in this case, to lesser extent Meenakshi, we will make history repeat itself and men will say, let us speak. If we don't do a better job of being women leaders. Of course. Please let's not let the courtesies down. Yes, sir. You want to say something? Okay, as you can see, we're going to need, maybe with the same panel back, we should have 4 sessions of this, because we intended very ambitiously to talk about the Uniform Civil Code, caste census and Waqf Board in 1 hour. You can see that that's not happening, but this is a taster of where potentially our public conversations can be. Just one touch less noisy, little bit more evidence-based, but this was a great beginning. Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you so much.
We're going to take a short cocktail break. The doors behind are going to open, and there are live counters there. There's snacks outside. Let's keep walking. Most importantly, let's keep talking, and let's not shout. Thank you very, very much, all 3 of you, for being here. Thank you, everybody.